What if Fate Extra CCC had a remake or a re-release that included a new route with scrapped content, creating a different story? What would stay the same and what would change? Well, here's my take on it. Our story will start off with the school being attacked by shadows, sending all the remaining characters to the far side of the moon. After becoming familiar with their new environment and situation, Hakuno and their servant would go to the labyrinth, where they would meet the mastermind, supposedly on the first floor, calling herself the Queen of the Moon, appearing as a punky risque Ren Tosaka. This Ren wouldn't seem so different from what most fans know, even though mentally she is half BB. Occasionally, we would have scenes where her being alone, talking to herself, holding up a conversation, and there's indicators of who is in control at the time based off of eye color, and that they refer to Hakuno as Hakuno or Senpai. Attempting to stop the Queen of the Moon, she would take this as a challenge, bringing forth her sentinels on each set of floors for Hakuno to defeat to reach her. Now this is where some of our changes come into play. First off, because Ren is in a different position, we have Rani and Elizabeth Bathory as our first bosses for chapter 1. Nothing really changes here beside that. Following on the second chapter, we have our next major boss, BBB, who is a giant robot looking Sakura. We don't know BB in this story just yet, only Ren. During this chapter, there will be many unwinnable fights, but this is only due to the fact that she is a giant mech, and throughout the fight she will be weakening her bit by bit until the final encounter, where you have to beat her in a smaller body because the bigger body has taken too much accumulative damage, not just because of you, but because of somebody else who's also been following you throughout this chapter. Now, after her defeat, she will try to get in one last shot to take you down with her, and that is when Passionlip will show up and take her out using Trash and Crash, helping you out. For chapter 3, Passionlip keeps her position as the third major boss. Otherwise, nothing changes for this chapter besides her involvement in the previous. Next, we have another giant. This is gonna be Kingprotea, who's going to be the boss of the fourth set of floors. Originally designed as a roadblock to stop repetition as well as destroy paths within the labyrinth, she would also serve this role on previous floors starting around chapter 2. Now you can try to face her, and if you do a certain amount of damage, it will unlock more paths to explore and items for you to get from chests, but that's only for those who are smart enough, strong enough, and brave enough to even attempt to do so. Definitely something for a new game plus scenario, but for your first run, it's definitely going to be a challenge. Now, when you beat her, any path that she was blocking will be open for you to explore. These will now include newer enemies who will drop rare items more often, as well as chests that will have valuable items that may help you, as well as occasionally a nice chunk of Sakura drops here and there. What are those for? Well, you just have to keep watching, I guess. For chapters 5 and 6, Berserker Elizabeth and Melt are going to stay the same. Nothing changes here. Now, throughout this story, you would have met another Sakura lookalike under the name of Violet. She does not fight you, but she's not necessarily on your side. That is until around this point she will join you for reasons I'll explain later. And this is where I'm gonna add some replay value for people. So when you're going to off to face your servant 0 model to power them up for the final battle, you have a choice of either Violet or Elizabeth. This is where you can actually learn more and spend time with these characters, fleshing them out a bit more than they have been in the previous chapters. So once you've done one, then play the game again and do the other. Now we have our final boss, who is the Queen of the Moon. Now, instead of fighting herself, she will act as a master, and she will summon forth BB, or rather BB would have summoned forth herself through Ren, and that is where the fight commences. Now, after beating her, BB will have separated completely from Ren, and if you've met certain conditions, you'll then face Kiara, which will then eventually lead you to what's considered the true ending. This is where we'll learn more about BB, Sakura, as well as how Ren got in the situation in the first place. So what's the deal with Violet? So as I've stated and hinted at before, she is a non-combative character who is observing everything that has gone down. Her whole purpose is to make sure resources are properly managed and used throughout this side of the moon. She would, throughout the story, find Ren/BB to be wasteful and thus siding with Hakuno to try to get rid of her. She'll also be an ally that provides intel and some exposition about some of the Sakuras as well as about the labyrinth. Now, when it comes to Kazuradrops, who I failed to mention up till now, this is because she is also a non-combative character who will operate as another shopkeeper who will be able to sell you bonus effects such as increased experience, reduced MP costs, increasing drop rates, showing you where hidden paths are, and so much more. Essentially, she operates as a way to make exploring the labyrinth easier, and to purchase these benefits you need Sakuradrops, which I've mentioned before. And Sakuradrops in this case are going to be different from Sacrament as seen in the original release. Kazuradrops can also be found through general exploration of the labyrinth, as well as enemies having a chance of dropping some, and getting some from just completing chapters and beating bosses at the end of the chapter. Now, Kadra is not a big fan of a lot of the characters within the game, so since you're the cause of why they are the way they are, you're gonna have to build up your relationship with her by actually buying stuff from her so that she can actually do her job and feel like she's fulfilling her purpose. And then she'll tell you more information about her the more you buy, but if you visit her throughout the chapters and talk to her, then she'll also give you some free bits of information here or there, alongside Violet telling you about some of the Sakuras as well throughout the story. It'll create a fuller story and characterize Kadra's character without her actually needing to be a major part of the plot itself. Now here's something for those who want more value to play longer. Kazuradrops will give you a challenge. Now I've come up with two different types of challenge. Challenge number one is you have to beat her, and she will use the powers of all the Sakuras that you have faced up to this point. Now if you faced BB already and you've gone back with a clear save, then she'll be stronger compared to if you haven't faced the Queen of the Moon yet. Now I will include some of Violet's skills here, because at this point you already know combat wise what she's like, assuming you picked her. And if you beat her, you get a mystic coat themed after BB or Moon Queen Ren's outfit, which will have end game level abilities, which will be very useful for New Game Plus and bonus bosses. Now here's our alternative, where you fight all of the Sakura bosses, except now they're fair but stronger, and for each one you beat, you get a mystic code based off of their outfit, which has skills representative of that Sakura's skills, again used for New Game Plus, or maybe if you want to challenge one of these secret bosses, you can do that, and you'll have an easier time if you want to use them. But what do you think of this concept that I have constructed using scripted content from CCC? Do you think it's a good idea? What would you change? What would you keep the same? I'd like to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Now, if you want to see more content centered around the Type Moon universe that's going to be informative, check out my catalog of content, because there's a lot to learn and there's a lot I explain that I make very easy for anyone regardless of how much you know or don't know.